I think what concerns me is the statement you just made earlier, which is you had very little to do with the Southport misinformation, yet you've been presented evidence here where you helped to monetize the creation of misinformation, a key piece of misinformation that was used to incentivize the riots. Has you done any reflection post the Southport riots, looking at how your advertising and monetization of content may have contributed to the riots we saw across the UK?
Absolutely. So any time an incident plays out in the real world, a terrorist attack, any real world harm situation, we have our strategic command teams do a root cause and corrective action assessment. We post-mortem, if anything did go wrong, what can we learn from that? And we roll those learnings into our policies and our enforcement processes on a real-time basis. So absolutely. The example that
Can you share that with us, with the committee?
I'm sure we can
report.
The post-mortem.
The internal, the post-mortem.
Let me take that back and see what we can make.
Okay, so a final question, because one of the things you keep saying is hold us to account. You are the monopoly in this area, essentially. You are. I mean, let's just call it as it is. You are the market dominant. Okay, have that.
Significant market power.
Significant market power, significant market dominance.
Google could argue with that.
Right.
I think this committee is focused on misinformation, and it's important the distinction that you draw, but it does sound to me, well, in fact, it's not that it sounds to me, if you have 40% of global digital advertising, and if you agree, which the evidence shows that significant, some misinformation or the drive for misinformation is caused by advertising revenues. So the incentives for the communication of misinformation is advertising revenues. Then you must accept that Google plays a significant part in that.
So the numbers that you state are absolutely correct. I would go back to the processes that my team runs, the policies we set, the way we enforce is how we take our responsibility in this space to sort of manifest that we want to ensure a safe ecosystem.
Let's just talk, before we move on, just on this particular example, we have an organisation, we've seen the committee has seen an unpublished report by a non-profit organisation called Check My Ads, which presents what they say is evidence that Google helped to monetize Channel 3 Now, which was a site that published misinformation about the Southport attacks, and particularly and specifically the wrong name of the attacker, which and the information that the attacker was a Muslim migrant was wrong, and they have evidence that the site claimed to be monetized by two major companies, Zurich and Google, at the time that it published that misinformation. Now, I don't know whether you've been contacted by them. Perhaps you can. But if that is the case, or if you accept that something of the balance of probabilities, there will be cases like that. Do you speak to your own responsibilities or your own processes to address that? But is that really good enough, given what we've seen and what we do not want to see again?
Yeah, so I would completely agree that monetizing any form of low-quality information, particularly associated with an atrocious real-world attack, is absolutely not acceptable. I haven't seen that report yet. I'm very happy to take a look at the report once it comes out and to respond in writing if that's helpful. But very much agree that would violate our policies. It's something that we would look into and understand what had gone wrong. These fast-moving real-world situations are very challenging. There is viral spread of information on social media, and we have to deal with the echo of that across sites that we operate with.
I appreciate that, and we will look forward to your response. I mean, just to clarify again, though, Channel 3 now is not social media. It is a website, which was part of the drive of disinformation, misinformation through social media. But it was a website which is apparently been which has been monetized through advertising. Emily, did you want to come in on this?
Yes. Yeah. So I think it's quite interesting what you're saying, that there's a difference between the illegal content that my colleague Paul was raising in terms of, and misinformation sites. Now, this is an interesting use of language, but clearly comes down to the quality of the systems within Google. Misinformation that leads to violence, which is exactly the case that you have raised. I still don't understand how you, through your ad processes, ensure that you are not monetizing and encouraging the creation of this material in order for the content creators to knowingly create material that is harmful, misinformation, incites violence against others or themselves. Your ad model seems to promote that kind of activity, and I'm trying to understand how you are disincentivizing the creation of that material and websites.
Yeah, so our publisher policies are the way we deal with this, and then the enforcement of those policies. So the policies prohibit content that is hateful, inciting to violence, exactly what you're describing. We can then take action at the content level, so at the page level, at the actor level, and we have strike systems that we employ. If a publisher repeatedly violates our policies, we can take action at the whole site level. And we do take those actions. So in our most recent report, we took down 2.1 billion publisher pages from being able to monetize, so cutting off their ability to make money from this sort of content that violates our policies. And 395,000 publishers were demonetized at the publisher level. So we're absolutely taking action there.
Could you give an example of where you've taken action against something that we would know about in the UK to demonetize a site? Could you give an example?
I could follow up with a specific example of a UK publisher. I don't have an example top of mind, but we're taking these actions at scale every single day all around the world.
I'd appreciate that follow-up because I'm failing to see the action that you're talking about. So Google controls between 40 and 80% of the market share of the buy side, right? And that's putting together Google ads and YouTube, which you own, and they're similar, and these work together, don't they? Are you aware of the recent report from the Centre for Counting Digital Hate looking at the monetization of anorexia and eating disorder material and then monetizing it and having advertisers like Ralph Lauren and L'Oreal on these sites that are clearly about self-harm to young people? How are you actually taking action to stop that? So that space is one that absolutely is concerning, and my heart goes out to anyone who is experiencing that sort of situation. What we try to do is make sure that in those very sensitive user journeys where someone is looking for that kind of information, that we're elevating what's called one boxes. So those are a particular treatment within search where we're elevating information from, for example, the Samaritans or shout text, local UK-based entities that someone can reach out to get support and to help them towards a recovery journey. And obviously that's particularly critical in the sorts of areas that you're describing. Right. But how much money has Google made off of these ads on eating disorder content that's being promoted? 1 in 4 of the material coming up and being suggested by YouTube breaches your own policies in terms of harmful eating content. And these adverts of quite high profile, big brand names, how much money do you reckon that you have made off of that?
I'm afraid I can't answer that question. I don't know, and I'm not a YouTube expert. We have a dedicated YouTube trust and safety team, so we'd have to follow up and provide some more information there. But I would go back to, in these instances of things like eating disorder journeys, we are really focused on making sure people have access to support, that they're getting high quality information, and we can't do anything about a navigational query where someone's typing in the URL of the site they want to go to, but we can make sure those sites are adhering to our publisher policies, and we can make sure the search page is flooded with information to help people to recover.
So just to come back on that, because it comes back to your point, Chi, how fast is fast, right? How fast are they? So only 22% of that material was removed after 2 weeks after reporting. 74% of that material had not been removed after 2 weeks. So is that the kind of time periods we should expect? Or when you say swiftly, do you mean a month, or do you mean a day or an hour?
So the time between a user reporting something and the takedown is a relevant fact, but it also depends on our policies. Some of those user reports will be things that don't violate our policies, and so we won't take action. But when someone reports something that is policy violative, we would seek to take action as quickly as possible, and we're using those signals across all of our products, of user reports, of expert reports, government reports, to take action quickly, complementing what we do with our classifiers and our human reviewers.
I think we'll need to move on now, but I do think that we would appreciate your writing to us with the more detail on that in terms of the timing. And I have the impression that what you're saying is that where it doesn't violate your policies, you may try to show, if you like, counter misinformation, or to raise help sort of Samaritans, rather than actually taking the misinformation down.
Is misinformation one of those things that you evaluated against? So, for example, in the news, we saw that the AI overview asserted that the average IQ in Pakistan was 80, Kenya was 75.2, and Sierra Leone was 45.07. Now, quite clearly, this is just racism, and has absolutely been debunked by scientific research. That's clear misinformation. How do you ensure that clear misinformation is absolutely stripped from your AI overview, or is misinformation considered less important than something that's potentially illegal?
So absolutely not. We're very concerned about harm, real-world harm, and information quality. The example that you're giving is from a Wired article that people may have seen. It was absolutely not the sort of answer that we would have wanted to give. Absolutely violated our policies, and we have taken action on that particular space.
Can I just say that, because I followed that, and the action was not within hours, it was not even within days. It took some time for that to come down.
Yeah, that's totally fair. This was the very early stages of AI overviews, and this is a new feature. It's something that we labelled as experimental, and that we absolutely are continuing to refine over time. So you're right. It was not as quick a reaction as we would have expected, but we have taken action. It did violate our policies, and what we learned from that experience is that there are certain areas where if a user puts in a query, there just isn't enough high-quality content on the internet to create an AI overview. So we have AI overviews triggering on certain queries and not triggering on others. And if we see there's what we call a data void, which is not enough high-quality information, then we won't trigger an AI overview. So we have implemented a more systemic fix to exactly that problem space.
So obviously this committee is very interested in both the spread of misinformation and the spread of incitement to violence and hatred in the context of what we've seen rise in the UK, particularly during the summer. What changes have you actually done as a result of these examples to actually make sure it doesn't happen again? That's what I'm not clear about. I get you took action on this one, but what is going to stop it from happening in the future? Yeah. And what gives then rise confidence to the public looking at these AI overviews or allowing their children to use them to write a paper for school?
Yeah, so It's critical for us to be raising authoritative information, not serving information to people that is misleading or harmful. So we have strict policies to make sure that we're meeting that benchmark. We're constantly learning and taking feedback from users, from other authorities, and making sure that we are responsive and learning from incidents like this. So that constant learning process and judging us on the outcomes that you see on our products, I think is critical here. Again, I would go back to, we're not social media, and some of the problems you're articulating of viral spread of misinformation, for example, is something that is more pertinent in those contexts.
I get what you're saying, this last question, but and I get you trying to make that distinction between a search company and social media, but the reality is your AI scraping to create your AI overview is scraping social media. So you can't really disaggregate that world anymore. It's not, you don't live in two different spaces.
It's a really fair question. So again, I would go back to 25 years of search ranking has taught us a lot about how you distinguish high quality information from lower quality information, and the way of assessing relevance, quality is really nuanced based on all of those search experiments we've done and all of that years of experience in search ranking. So we're very much using that to make sure that the sources that we use to create an AI overview are high quality sources. And in some cases where something is a really fast moving event, there's a lot of discussion on social media. We also have treatments like breaking news to make sure that we're putting high quality news information at the top of the search results, not necessarily triggering an AI overview, and using authoritative sources in any AI overview that is being created.